The hum of the spaceship was almost soothing as it drifted through the vast emptiness of space. For the human recruit, it was his first time on a ship that wasn't from Earth. He had been selected for a special intergalactic training program that would take him far from his home planet into the unknown. Despite the excitement that came with being part of something bigger, there was also an undercurrent of nervousness that ran through him. The crew was made up of many different species, and it was a little overwhelming. As he walked down the long, sterile hallway of the dormitory, he passed aliens of various shapes and sizes, some humanoid, others entirely foreign to anything he had ever seen before. He couldn't help but feel like an outsider in a place so vast and full of strange beings. He approached the door to his new quarters, his heart beating a little faster. According to his assignment, he had been given a bunkmate for the duration of the mission. Most of the recruits had been assigned to rooms alone, so this was a bit of a surprise. The door slid open and the human recruit stepped inside. What he saw first was a small alien sitting on the edge. The recruit was more than a little confused now. He looked at her, unsure if she was joking or she was serious. He tried to step back again, but the alien seemed to follow him. Her eyes were full of expectation, and he couldn't help but feel a little strange about the situation. Was this normal? Were all aliens like this? Before he could gather his thoughts, the alien stepped forward again, and to his surprise, she gently clung to his arm. Her hands wrapped around his arm with surprising strength. He froze, unsure of how to react. He had never had an alien cling to him before, let alone a small one like this. "Wait, hold on," the recruit stammered, taking a step back and awkwardly trying to pry her off. "What are you doing?" Her bright eyes sparkled with innocence as she gave him a big, wide grin. "I told you. Humans are perfect for clinging to." She didn't seem to notice that he was uncomfortable. "This is how I show friendship and trust. You won't find any other species more affectionate than mine. It's the way we form connections. Close bonds are vital to us." The recruit blinked, again feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm not sure I'm used to this kind of closeness," he said hesitantly, unsure of what to do next. "We don't exactly do this on Earth." The alien's eyes widened in fascination. "Really? How do you show closeness, then? Do you not like this?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine curiosity. He scratched his head awkwardly. "Well, we do have friendships and bonds, but we usually don't cling to each other like this." She tilted her head slightly, her pointed ears flicking as if she were processing this new information. "How strange. I've read about humans, but I didn't realize you didn't enjoy close contact. How do you form connections without physical closeness?" The recruit tried to answer but felt his words faltering. He wasn't prepared for this. He had expected to meet a fellow crew member, maybe a friendly alien who would help him get settled. What he had not expected was a bunkmate who wanted to physically cling to him at every opportunity. "Well, we might give hugs or high fives, or sometimes just talk or hang out," he said, trying to explain, "but not cling." He felt awkward saying it aloud, but it seemed necessary. The alien didn't seem dissuaded. Instead, she gave him a soft smile, one that made her appear much younger than she probably was. "Don't worry, human friend. I will help you get used to it. It's not so bad, is it?" She looked up at him with such innocence that the recruit couldn't bring himself to pull away any harder. I guess I'll have to get used to it," he muttered. His mind was still spinning, trying to understand why this alien found such comfort in clinging to him. As the moments passed, he realized this was going to be an interesting experience, to say the least. He'd have to learn more about his alien bunkmate, and perhaps, just perhaps, figure out how to survive the clinginess that now seemed inevitable. What had he gotten himself into? The next few days aboard the spaceship felt like a whirlwind for the human recruit. The training sessions were difficult enough on their own, but now, with his alien bunkmate constantly at his side, things had become complicated. It wasn't that the alien, whose name he learned was Zivra, meant any harm. She seemed genuinely friendly, but the recruit quickly realized that her constant need for close physical contact was becoming too much. Whether they were sitting down for a meal, reviewing training materials, or even walking to their assignments, Zivra was always there, clinging to his arm, his shoulder, or even his back. At first, the recruit tried to be polite. He smiled awkwardly, hoping she would tire of it. He had never been good at confrontation, and frankly, he wasn't sure how to explain that her constant touching was making him uncomfortable. One day, during their lunch break, the recruit sat at a small table in the dining area, carefully picking at his food. Zivra, as always, was sitting beside him, her eyes focused on him with intense curiosity. "Are you enjoying the food?" she asked brightly, her hands resting on the table between. Yeah, it's all right," he replied, his voice a bit strained. He had to admit the food wasn't bad, but it was hard to enjoy it with Zivra leaning so close to him. She was practically sitting on his side of the table, her arm brushing against his. He tried to shift in his seat, but she followed his movement, moving closer. "I've noticed humans like to eat together," she said with excitement. "We should do this every day. You will teach me how to eat the way humans do. It's very interesting." The recruit gave her a hesitant smile, trying to keep the conversation. "Right, sure, we can do that." He was starting to feel a little overwhelmed, but didn't want to hurt her feelings. Suddenly, Zivra reached over and placed her hand on his arm. "You look so funny when you're unsure. Don't worry. I'll always be here. You humans are fascinating." The recruit froze. It wasn't the first time she had touched him, but the way she did it was starting to wear on him. "I appreciate the company, Zivra," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. "But maybe you could, give me a little space?" Zivra tilted her head, her large eyes blinking in confusion. "Space? But ... we are already in the same room, and I thought we were bonding. Don't you want to be close to me? I told you, humans are perfect for clinging to." The recruit tried to hide his discomfort, forcing a laugh. "I know you said that, but I guess humans aren't used to ... clinging this much. We do like our personal space." Zivra's face softened with concern. "Oh, I see. You are not used to it, but you will learn. I can teach you how to enjoy it. It will feel good, you'll see." She then clung to his arm again, wrapping her small, delicate hands around his forearm. Squeezing it lightly as if to emphasize her point, the recruit sighed inwardly. This was not going the way he'd hoped. He needed to find a way to handle this, or he might go crazy. Later that evening, during a routine maintenance session in the ship's gym, things only got worse. The recruit had been working on repairing a piece of equipment when Zivra appeared beside him. Without asking, she looped her arm around his waist, leaning into him as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "How are you doing, human?" she asked, her voice soft and sweet. "I'm good, just fixing this," he replied, trying not to let his irritation show. He focused on the task at hand, but it was difficult with her so close. He could feel her warmth pressing against his side, her breath close to his ear. The closeness made his heart race, but not in a good way. He had never been one to push people away, but this was starting to feel like more than he could handle. "Zivra, can you maybe not hold on so tight?" he asked, his voice a bit strained. She pulled back slightly, but only enough for her to look at him with a puzzled expression. "I don't understand, human." "This is how we show trust and affection. Isn't that what you want from me? To be close? You said you were fine with it earlier." The recruit rubbed his temples, trying to think of a way to explain. "It's just, you're very different from what I'm used to. I need some time to adjust to all of this." Zivra seemed to consider his words for a moment before nodding. "I understand. I will give you space ... for now. But remember, I am always here if you need me, and soon you will see how much better it feels to be close. You'll see that we are made for each other in this way." He wanted to argue, to tell her that it wasn't about being made for each other, and more about needing personal space. But he didn't want to hurt her feelings further. Instead, he nodded quietly, hoping the conversation would end there. As he continued working, he glanced at Zivra, who had moved back a little but was still watching him closely. Her innocent enthusiasm was endearing, but it didn't make the situation any easier for the recruit. By the time the maintenance session ended, the recruit felt mentally drained. He had tried to be patient, to explain his need for space, but it felt like it wasn't sinking in. Zivra's behavior wasn't malicious. In fact, it was quite the opposite. She was trying to connect with him in the only way she knew how. But to the recruit, her constant clinging was starting to feel less like friendship and more like a never-ending challenge. As he walked back to their shared quarters, he couldn't help but wonder how much longer he could tolerate this constant closeness. Would he ever get used to it? Or would he find a way to make her understand the boundaries he desperately needed? Only Tim. He would tell. The days went by, and the human recruit found himself caught in a strange dance with his alien bunkmate, Zivra. No matter how much he tried to focus on his training or escape the ship's social pressures, there she was, always by his side, clinging to him at every possible moment. He was beginning to feel like he would never get any personal space, and it was slowly wearing on him. One morning, as they sat down for their daily meal in the cafeteria, Zivra spoke up, her voice light and curious. "You seem different today." "Human," she observed, her large, bright eyes watching him closely. "Is there something bothering you?" The recruit looked at her, unsure how to respond. He didn't want to hurt her feelings, but at the same time, he felt like he was reaching his breaking point. "Well, I've been thinking. It's just that I'm not used to having someone so close all the time." Zivra tilted her head slightly, her pointed ears flicking with interest. "Not used to it? But I thought we were friends. Friends are close, right?" She clung to his arm once again, wrapping her SMND. "When we respect each other's personal space, it shows that we trust one another and respect boundaries. It helps us feel comfortable in relationships." Zivra nodded slowly, her alien features betraying no emotion other than deep thought. "I see," she murmured. "I was taught that closeness equals trust. But now I understand that for you, trust comes with respecting space. It must be different from what I'm used to." The recruit gave her a small, encouraging smile. "Yeah, it's different, but that doesn't mean we don't value each other's company. It's just that we have different ways of expressing friendship." Zivra seemed to absorb his words, and after a long silence, she finally spoke again. "I will try to learn your ways, human," she said with a smile. "But you must teach me how. To do it, I want to be your friend in the way that is comfortable for you." The recruit felt a wave of relief wash over him. She wasn't upset or offended, she was genuinely trying to understand. "Thank you, Zivra, that means a lot to me." As they finished their meal, the recruit noticed a change in Zivra's behavior. She still hovered close by, but she had stopped clinging to him so tightly. Instead, she kept a respectful distance, sitting next to him rather than leaning into him. It was a small shift, but it felt like a huge victory for the human recruit. Maybe they could find some middle ground after all. Over the next few days, Zivra continued to make efforts to respect the recruit's need for space, while she still, occasionally reached out to touch his arm or shoulder. She now seemed more aware of his boundaries and would pull back when he gently nudged her away. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One evening, as they worked together in the ship's gym, the recruit had another idea. "Hey, Zivra, do you want to try something?" he asked. Zivra looked at him with curiosity. "What is it?" "I was thinking we could do some exercises together. It might be a good way to bond, but without the clinginess. We could focus on something physical, like a challenge. What do you think?" Zivra tilted her head. "Exercise? Like game?" She seemed intrigued. "Exactly. A friendly competition," the recruit said, smiling. "That way, we can have fun and challenge each other, but you don't have to cling to me while we do it." Zivra's eyes lit up. "I like this idea. Let's do it." The two of them spent the next hour trying various challenges, races, push-ups, and balancing exercises. It was awkward at first, with Zivra's natural tendency to stay close to him, but over time they began to find a rhythm. Zivra was surprisingly strong and agile, her alien physiology giving her an edge in some challenges, but the recruit wasn't far behind. The competition helped to break the tension between them, and they both laughed and cheered each other on. By the end of the session, both of them were exhausted but smiling. "That was fun," Zivra exclaimed, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I will remember this game. You humans are very good at it." The recruit, breathing heavily, nodded. Yeah, I think we made a good team. I'm glad we found a way to do this without, clinging. Zivra smiled warmly. I'm glad too. Thank you for teaching me about your ways. I will try to respect your space from now on. The recruit felt a sense of relief wash over him. For the first time since meeting Zivra, he felt like they were finally on the same page. He didn't know if they would ever fully understand each other's cultures, but he felt that their friendship was now built on mutual respect. He was starting to realize that, despite their differences, they could work together and learn from one another, and maybe, just maybe, their odd and sometimes awkward bond was something special after all. The days passed, the human recruit started to feel that the situation with Zivra was improving. There were moments when they shared a laugh, moments of genuine connection. She had stopped clinging to him at every turn, respecting his space more often than not. However, there were still times when the bond she craved would surface, and those moments were harder to navigate. It was during their training exercises one afternoon that the recruit felt the weight of it again. The training was meant to be a test of their physical endurance, teamwork, and mental agility. Zivra, true to form, was eager to tackle each challenge head-on. Are you ready, human? Zivra asked, her voice filled with excitement. She was already jumping in place, her small frame bouncing with energy. Her eagerness was infectious, but the recruit was feeling the pressure. He had worked hard to teach her boundaries, but it seemed like every time they began a new challenge, Zivra's natural instinct to cling resurfaced. The first challenge was a simple one, a series of timed obstacle courses. It wasn't anything too difficult, just enough to test their physical ability and how well they worked together as a team. The recruit was focused, and Zivra, despite her small size, was surprisingly fast and agile. But just as they approached the first hurdle, the recruit noticed that Zivra had slipped her hand around his waist again. At first, he tried to ignore it, thinking maybe it was just a reflex. But then it became more obvious she was holding on to him for support, almost like a lifeline. It wasn't malicious, but it was hard to focus with her constant physical presence. Zivra, can you maybe not hold on this time? He asked, trying to keep his tone light. He didn't want to make it a bigger deal than it was, but he was starting to feel the weight of it all again. Zivra immediately stopped, pulling her hand away from his waist with a slightly embarrassed look on her face. I'm sorry, human, I just it's a habit. We are taught that support is given through close contact. I'll try to focus without clinging to you. The recruit gave her a small smile. It's okay, really. I know you're trying. Let's just focus on the challenge, all right? They continued through the obstacle course, and for the most part, Zivra respected the space he asked for. But as the race neared its end, Zivra began to speed up, eager to finish first. Just as they were about to leap over the final hurdle, Zivra slipped, and without thinking, she grabbed onto the recruit's arm to keep herself steady. Zivra! The recruit exclaimed, almost tripping over his own feet as he caught her. He steadied himself, feeling the pressure of her clinginess once again. I'm so sorry, Zivra said quickly, pulling away and stepping back. I didn't mean to cause trouble. The recruit sighed and rubbed his forehead. I know you didn't, but we need to work on this. It's distracting. We can't finish the training if we keep doing this every time. Zivra looked down, clearly upset. I don't want to distract you. I just want to help. I'm not used to this, human. The recruit took a deep breath and softened his tone. I know, it's not your fault. I just need a bit more space when we're working together. I can't focus if I'm always worried you're going to grab me. She nodded, her expression still full of regret. I understand. I'll do better, I promise. Later that evening, the recruit found himself alone in the dormitory, lying on his bunk and staring at the ceiling. He couldn't stop thinking about Zivra's behavior. He had hoped that by explaining his need for space, things would get easier. But it felt like every time they tried something new, her clinginess came back, as if it was a part of who she was. There was a knock on the door, interrupting his thoughts. The door slid open, and Zivra entered, looking more hesitant than usual. Hey, human, she said softly, looking down at her feet. I just wanted to apologize again. I know I've been A bit much. The recruit sat up and smiled at her. It's okay, Zivra. I know you don't mean anything by it. It's just ... I don't think we understand each other's needs yet, and that's all right. Zivra looked up, her large eyes filled with sincerity. I've been thinking. Maybe I need to learn more about your ways. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I just want to be close because that's how I connect. But I understand now that you need more space. I can learn how to give you that. The recruit was surprised by her words. It felt like she genuinely wanted to improve, to respect him. That means a lot, Zivra. I appreciate you trying so hard. Maybe we can find a way to meet in the middle? She smiled brightly at him. I think so. Maybe we can do things together without me being so close. Like, I can support you from a distance. And when I feel the need to cling, I'll remember what you said and wait for the right moment. The recruit nodded, feeling relieved. That sounds like a good plan. I think we're getting there, little by little. The following days were a slow but steady improvement. Ivra continued to try her best to respect the boundaries the recruit had set, even if it meant she had to step back when her natural instincts told her to cling. They still struggled at times, but it was no longer as difficult as before. They started to work together more effectively in their training, each understanding the other's needs a little better with each passing day. One afternoon, as they sat in the recreation lounge, Zivra looked at the recruit and smiled. I think we're learning, human. I haven't clung to you once today. The recruit grinned back. You're doing great, and I'm getting better at not stepping back every time you're around. Zivra laughed, and for the first time in a long while, the recruit felt that their bond was becoming more balanced. Despite the challenges, they were starting to build a friendship rooted in understanding. Zivra gave him a small nod. Her large eyes focused on the floor as they continued walking. I know it's hard for me. We've always been taught that closeness means trust and that it's the best way to connect. But I see now that it's different for you humans. You need your space to feel comfortable. The recruit felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had been worried that their relationship might never move past the awkwardness. But now he could see that Zivra was making real progress, and that gave him hope. I think we're doing better, he said, trying to reassure her. We just need to keep learning from each other, you know? We're different, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way to make this work. Zivra smiled brightly at him. I agree, human. I want us to be friends. I think we can understand each other, even if it takes time. The recruit smiled back, feeling a sense of warmth in his chest. For the first time since meeting Zivra, he felt like they were finally on the same page. Later that day, during one of their training exercises, the recruit noticed a small change. Zivra was still close, but this time she wasn't as touchy. Instead of clinging to him when they worked together, she kept a respectful distance, offering help only when needed. It was a small shift, but it made the recruit feel more at ease. They worked together smoothly, tackling each challenge with ease. As the session came to an end, the recruit felt a sense of accomplishment. Not just because they had completed the exercises, but because for the first time, he felt like he and Zivra were truly working as a team. They were learning from each other, adapting, and slowly finding common ground. The following week, things took a turn for the better. Zivra invited the recruit to join her for a cultural exchange event that was hosted by the ship's command center. It was meant to introduce different species to each other's traditions, and the recruit was curious about what it would be like to experience an alien tradition firsthand. The event was held in a large, open room with tables filled with food from different planets and cultural displays from various species. Zivra was excited as they walked in, her eyes wide with wonder as she led him to a table filled with brightly colored fruit. These are from my home planet, Zivra explained, her voice full of pride. They're called karmaki, and they're very sweet. You should try one. The recruit hesitated for a moment. He was still getting used to the idea of trying food from other species, but Zivra was so eager that he couldn't bring himself to refuse. All right, I'll try one, he said with a smile. Zivra handed him one of the fruits, and he took a bite. To his surprise, it was delicious, sweet, juicy, and refreshing. "This is amazing," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Where do I get more of these?" Zivra laughed, clearly pleased with his reaction. "I'm glad you like it. I'll show you where to get more later." The rest of the evening was spent sharing stories and learning about each other's cultures. The recruit found himself enjoying the experience, even though it was a little overwhelming at times. He had expected it to be awkward, especially with the way things had started between him and Zivra, but it felt natural. The conversation flowed easily, and Zivra seemed genuinely interested in his experiences as well. At one point during the evening, Zivra brought up the topic that had been on both of their minds since their first meeting: their different ways of bonding. "You know, human," Zivra began, her voice thoughtful, "I still sometimes feel the urge to cling to you. But I understand now that you need space. It's just part of who I am, but I'm really trying to adjust. I want to be your friend the way you need me to be." The recruit looked at her, feeling touched by her honesty. "Zivra, you've come a long way. I can see that you're trying, and that means a lot to me. I'm learning too, you know? I've had to adjust to some things as well, like being around someone so different from me." Zivra smiled, her eyes sparkling. "We are different, but I think that's what makes us good friends. We have a lot to learn from each other." As the evening went on, the recruit realized something important. It wasn't about the clinginess or the need for space. It was about the effort to understand each other, the willingness to change and adapt, and the shared goal of building a connection. No matter how different they were, when the event finally ended, Zivra walked with the recruit back to their quarters, a comfortable silence between them. The recruit felt lighter, knowing that their bond was slowly growing stronger. Maybe it was a little unconventional, but that was what made it unique. "I'm glad we're doing this, Zivra," the recruit said as they reached their door. Zivra nodded. "Me too, human, me too." With a final smile, she disappeared into her room, leaving the recruit standing there, feeling a little more at home than he had before. Maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't so big and lonely after all. As time went on, the recruit and Zivra started to fall into a rhythm. The awkwardness that had once defined their relationship was slowly fading away, replaced by a mutual understanding that grew stronger with every passing day. They still had their differences, but those differences were becoming less of a barrier and more of a learning experience for both of them. The recruit had begun to realize that Zivra wasn't just clingy or overly enthusiastic. She was genuinely trying her best to adapt. The more he got to know her, the more he understood that her behavior was rooted in the way her species formed connections, not in any desire to make him uncomfortable. She simply wanted to be close, and as much as it had frustrated him in the beginning, he now saw it as a sign of trust. One morning, as they were preparing for another training session, Zivra approached him with an excited gleam in her eyes. "Human," she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "I have an idea. I want to try something new today. I've been reading about human problem-solving techniques, and I think it could be fun if we work together on a challenge." "What do you think?" The recruit raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A challenge? What kind of challenge?" Zivra grinned. "A mental one. We can combine your human problem-solving skills with my alien instincts. We'll solve a series of puzzles together, and the first one to solve the most wins." The recruit smiled, feeling a little more comfortable with the idea. "That sounds interesting. I'm up for it." They spent the next hour working through a series of complex puzzles. Some were logic-based, requiring careful thought and strategy, while others were more physical, testing their teamwork and coordination. The recruit found himself impressed by Zivra's quick thinking and her ability to adapt to human ways of solving problems. She had a unique perspective, one that was shaped by her alien biology and upbringing, and it gave her an edge in ways he hadn't expected. At first, Zivra had struggled to understand the human approach to problem-solving, but over time she started to pick up on the patterns. She had learned to step back when needed, respecting the space the recruit had asked for while still offering her own input. The two of them started to complement each other in ways they hadn't before, finding a balance between their strengths. "Nice work," the recruit said after solving a particularly tricky puzzle. "You're getting better at this." Zivra beamed. "I'm glad. I've been trying to understand how you think, human. It's very different from how we solve problems on my planet, but I'm starting to see the appeal." Later that afternoon, the two of them joined the rest of the crew for a group activity. It was a physical challenge meant to test the team's ability to work together in high-pressure situations. The recruit and Zivra worked alongside other crew members from different species, but this time the recruit felt more confident. He wasn't as concerned about Zivra's behavior anymore because they had found a rhythm. She was no longer clinging to him at every opportunity, but instead working with him as an equal, offering her strength and insight when needed. During one of the tasks, the team had to navigate a complicated maze. The goal was to reach the center before time ran out, using only a set of tools and their wits. Zivra was quick to take charge, leading the group with confidence. But this time, the recruit wasn't annoyed by her taking the lead. He realized that, in her own way, Zivra was naturally good at directing people, and her leadership wasn't about control, it was about helping others succeed. "Follow me," Zivra called out, her voice steady and focused. "We can make it if we work together." The recruit followed her instructions, feeling more in sync with her than ever before. They communicated effortlessly, each one knowing when to step in and when to give the oath. "Our space." They were working together, not as separate beings trying to coexist, but as a team that respected each other's abilities and boundaries. In the end, their team won the challenge, reaching the center of the maze just moments before time expired. The recruit looked at Zivra, who was grinning ear to ear. "We did it!" she exclaimed. "We worked together as a team," the recruit smiled back, feeling a sense of pride. "Yeah, we did. That was a lot of fun." As they made their way back to their quarters later that day, the recruit couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the changes they had both gone through. Zivra had made huge strides in learning to respect his space, and in return, he had learned to understand her culture better. They weren't perfect, but they were learning and growing together. "You know," the recruit said, glancing over at Zivra as they walked side by side, "I think we've come a long way." Zivra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, human. We've learned a lot from each other. And I think we'll continue to learn together." The recruit couldn't help but agree. He had never expected to find a bond with an alien, let alone one who was so different from him. But now, after everything they had been through, he couldn't imagine working with anyone else. "Yeah," he said with a smile, "I think we're a pretty good team." Zivra smiled back, her eyes warm. "We are. And I'll always be here, human, in whatever way you need." As they reached the door to their shared quarters, the recruit felt a sense of peace. They had learned how to work together, how to adapt to each other's differences, and how to respect one another's space. Maybe they were different species, but in that moment, it didn't matter. They were friends, and that was all that mattered. The days leading up to the final test of their training seemed to drag on, but in a way, it was a good thing. The human recruit and Zivra had come a long way since their first awkward meeting. Now they were not just teammates. They were starting to feel like true friends, understanding each other's quirks, respecting each other's space, and working well together. It was a relief for the recruit to know that their differences weren't a barrier anymore. They were simply part of what made their partnership unique. The final test was a big one, a simulation that would determine how well each team could handle a high-stakes mission in space. The scenario was designed to challenge every skill they had learned so far: problem-solving, teamwork, endurance, and adaptability. The recruits had to navigate through a series of obstacles, solve complex puzzles, and manage high-pressure situations, all while working with others from different species. It was the ultimate test of how far they had come. Zivra and the recruit stood side by side, waiting for the simulation to begin. There was a palpable sense of excitement in the air, but also a bit of nervousness. The recruit glanced at Zivra, who was standing next to him with a confident look on her face. "Are you ready?" the recruit asked, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. Zivra nodded, her eyes bright with focus. Of course, human, I've been waiting for this. We will do well. Together, the recruit smiled, feeling a sense of pride. He had grown used to working with Zivra, and he knew that she was more than capable. What had once seemed like an awkward situation now felt like a partnership built on mutual respect and trust. The simulation began, and the recruits were thrust into the heart of the challenge. The first task was a series of timed puzzles that required quick thinking and cooperation. The recruit took the lead on the first puzzle, his mind racing as he quickly analyzed the situation. Zivra, as always, stood close by, ready to assist, with any ideas she could contribute. Try moving that piece there, Zivra suggested, pointing to a part of the puzzle. It will fit better if you shift it slightly. The recruit nodded, following her advice. To his surprise, the solution worked perfectly. Great idea, Zivra, he said, feeling more confident now. Let's keep going. They worked seamlessly through the next few challenges, their coordination improving with each task. Zivra's natural instincts and quick reflexes complemented the recruit's logical thinking and problem-solving abilities. They were in sync, working as a true team, each of them adding their strengths to the mission. As the simulation progressed, they came to a more difficult obstacle, an alien artifact they had to activate in order to open a secure door. It was a tricky puzzle involving a series of codes and sequences that had to be inputted in the correct order. The recruit stared at the panel, unsure of where to begin. The pressure was on. They had only minutes before the system would lock them out completely. I've seen this before, Zivra said suddenly, her voice calm and collected. Back home, we use similar systems. Let me try something. The recruit watched in awe as Zivra moved quickly and confidently, her hands flying across the panel. She was typing in a sequence of numbers, her alien knowledge giving her an edge. The recruit stepped back, letting her take the lead. She had proven time and again that her instincts were sharp, and now he knew that they needed to trust each other completely if they were going to succeed. Seconds ticked by, and just as the countdown reached its final moments, the door clicked open. The recruit let out a relieved sigh. Nice job, Zivra, he said, his voice filled with admiration. You did it. Zivra grinned, clearly pleased with herself. We did it, human. Together. They moved forward, feeling the adrenaline pumping in their veins. The next challenge was a physical test, climbing up a steep rock wall in a race against time. The recruit was faster than Zivra, but she was more agile, able to find footholds and handholds with ease. As they climbed, Zivra once again surprised him. She worked her way up with a natural grace, her body moving fluidly and efficiently. Keep going, human, Zivra called out from above. You can make it. The recruit grunted in response, pushing himself to climb faster. Zivra's encouraging words gave him the boost he needed, and together they reached the top just as the timer hit 0. They were both breathless, but exhilarated by their success. You're an amazing climber, Zivra, the recruit said, shaking his head in disbelief. I didn't expect that. Zivra laughed, her voice full of joy. And you're faster than I thought? You're not so bad, human. The final test of the simulation was the most intense simulated rescue mission in a foreign environment. The recruit and Zivra had to work together to rescue a stranded crew member, all while navigating through hazardous terrain. As they ventured through the environment, they encountered obstacles and danger-sharp rocks, unstable platforms, and toxic gas vents. Every step had to be calculated, every decision made carefully. At one point, Zivra tripped and almost fell into a pit, but the recruit was there to grab her hand at the last moment. He pulled her up with all his strength, their eyes meeting for a brief second. There was no need for words. He trusted her and she trusted him. They reached the stranded crew member and safely guided them back to the ship. The simulation ended with a loud, triumphant tone, signaling their success. The recruit let out a deep breath, feeling the weight of the mission lift from his shoulders. We did it, he said, looking at Zivra with pride. We did, she replied, her smile wide and sincere. Together. As the simulation room doors opened, the recruit and Zivra walked out, their hearts still racing from the intensity of the challenge. They had not only passed the final test, but they had also proven to themselves that they were capable of overcoming any obstacle together. It wasn't just about completing the tasks or winning the challenges, it was about the connection they had built, the understanding they had gained, and the trust they had formed. The recruit turned to Zivra, a smile tugging at his lips. "I couldn't have done it without you." Zivra's smile was just as wide. "And I couldn't have done it without you, human." For the first time, the recruit felt a deep sense of contentment. They had started this journey as strangers from different worlds, but now they were teammates, friends. And no matter what came next, he knew they would face it together.